my gosh, Penny, where are you? Where for art thou?
I'm here, darling. I'm here.
You're here for me?
I'm here. I'm here.
Wait, hold on a
Come
second.
closer. Come
You ready?
closer.
Yeah,
Yeah, you ready?
Mhm.
Real close.
Gosh, this is why we get in international trouble right there. Anyways, hey everybody, welcome to Comedium Roast, where we have special guests that come in and we talk about things like mediumship, astrology, all things about the spiritual path that you're on. We talk about pop culture, we talk about current events, and we have a lot of fun with it. You may recognize this lady over here. Hello, lovely. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I'm all the better for seeing you, my love.
Listen, I don't mean to sound like I'm I'm gonna draw back. How do you feel about Cleveland? Yeah, I need to. Isn't that from a movie where he's like, "How far can you pull back?" And you're like, "How do you feel about Cleveland?" Anyways,
Hello, we're about the same size now, darling.
I know, that's what she said. Anyway, so here we go, everybody. Welcome back, Penny. So we told you and promised you that we would absolutely be doing something down the road where we'll be able to kind of work together. It was schedules, it was health, it was all that other good stuff. So Penny has agreed to come on, come on to this, and it's going to look a little whiskey and bagelish, but there's no whiskey and there's no bagels. Like, I don't know what
there
the
is. Hang on, there is tea.
What happened?
Really
to you?
is tea. Well, because I'm having surgery in 3 weeks' time, I want to make sure that my body is in its optimum health. And I have lost something like 3 stone. I don't know what that is in, there's 12 pounds to a stone. So once 12 is 12. Are we
storming a castle? Like, are we storming a castle? Is that what we're doing?
36 pounds.
36, that's fantastic. Congratulations. Well, you there was that, and there was just there was a lot of things, and it was okay. Like, it was also the astrology. The astrology kind of was front and center for both of us, and we just kind of went, "Yeah, I'll talk to you later." I know, right?
Listen,
I so miss that face.
Listen, I've just got to tell you something.
Please do, and it's just us girls. Go ahead.
Today, transiting Saturn in Pisces is absolutely slap on my natal moon in Pisces, 10 degrees and something like 28 minutes.
So what does that mean for you? What have you know? Like, what's your man on the street take of it? And then astrologically, what does it mean?
Well, obviously it's happened to me before because Saturn takes, as you know, 29, 30 years to go around the zodiac or around the sun.
You and that Saturn stuff around your neck, you're slow to the uptake.
Yeah, there we go. There's my little Saturn.
There you go.
Saturn. But what is so super interesting is Saturn rules the skeleton, the spine, teeth, anything of that kind of nature, joints. So that with a Saturn transit, you can expect sometimes to get problems with your skeletal structure of some description. So 30 years ago, I had really bad back problems caused by a fall off a horse, which was, what are you doing?
I'm laughing because we both know that you just used the euphemism of a horse, and it was a lounge singer in Dunnington, and you were what?
I was just like, anyway.
You just called him horse. Like, you girls have nicknames for men, and your nickname for him was horse.
You don't want to know what my nickname is for you, do you?
It's not Dix, is it? I'm not taking your name. We already went there. And we're back, everybody. Mwah! Slightly inappropriate and always on point. So after the fall of the horse, didn't that send you on a terminal?
I fall off a horse, and what it did was, this was when I was 20, it compacted my lower vertebra. So I had this kind of problem then ongoing till I was in my 40s with my back. When I was 40 because I can't remember what I was 30 years ago, Saturn.
That's why you British always come in third on Jeopardy. What is damn blue?
But
Everything into something.
anyway, Saturn was transiting Pisces in 1993, 1994. And so it was once again conjunct my moon. And I had a friend who was a very good astrologer. She was one of the first people to really teach and introduce me to astrology.
There you go.
And she was going, oh, beware the Ides of March. And she said, you're going to have to be really careful because you've got a bad back. This is Saturn stuff. I think you might have a problem with your back. Well, I ended up having emergency surgery on my spine.
I remember the story.
30 years ago. So this time round, I thought, oh, here we go again. I'm prepared.
And it's funny because, like, you know, when two astrologers, like, this is literally sometimes how our conversations go. Like, you know, hey Penny, how you doing? You know, Saturn. like sometimes it's just, you know, like, you know, it's like, oh, the moon, the
Lilith,
moon.
honey, Lilith, honey.
Yeah, right. Oh,
anyway, let me finish my story.
Always.
So what's happened is Saturn is once again conjunct my moon. Now, what it means is in 3 weeks' time, I'm having spinal surgery. I'm having 3 vertebrae fused together, and 2, you notice I'm doing my fingers the right way round, 2 discs removed, and then they'll sew me all up again and wheel me back, and hopefully from then on in I will receive what he thinks is about 70% of my mobility back.
Yeah,
because at the moment my mobility is about 10%.
That's a good prognosis. And you got to remember though that like anything with the skeleton is healing, because you know I've had the feet stuff. You know, I'm a Pisces. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, in 4 more days, by the way, this is why we get along so well. My sun and Penny's moon are like kind of doing the dirty on our charts. Like, it's kind of funny. So, you know, that's why we get along so well. That's why we're like, I miss you. And then you're like, I can't talk to you anymore. And then it's like, tomorrow? Okay, talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Mine goes at 11. Okay. Well, my sun is at 11:11, and sure enough, when you so in another 4 days, 5 days really, I hit that as well, and I had this foot thing where I broke a bone, it got infected, blah 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 blah, and then I tore ligaments because I was on other stuff, and then all of this other jazz. But I feel good. I turned the corner, but it's, you know, once you get of a certain age, whatever that age is, and you've been taking antibiotics for 10 years, yeah. Yeah, we should have an OnlyFans if we're going to keep that up. The part of it, though, for me,
people are watching.
I know. 11 people are watching, and far cry from the 3,500 that were on at one point. They were like, "What are they doing again?" Oh, they're talking about themselves.
Yeah, well, then, yeah.
I know.
Anyway, carry on.
It's my show. It's approved. You know, but the concept and the you know thing for me too was I really had to slow some things down, and unfortunately, I had to cancel one of my trips, and I think that was one of my lessons in this. And it was, and I got super slow down. I mean, even when I go down, when I have home parties now, I tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm coming in. And
go down.
What's that?
When you go down.
When I slow down.
Oh, slow down. Sorry, darling. Sorry.
Apparently, a couple of your vertebrae are vibrating. So. And we're back. No, but to slow down was kind of my thing. So my entire routine is different now. You know, I come in, if I have readings in the afternoon, I like sleep in, and then I am, you know, just approaching it differently, because that that Saturn punching you in a major is a serious problem. Like, it's totally something, you know, that you have to really kind of, you know, pull along to. And I think it's interesting too. I mean, one of the authentic pieces that you and I always bring to the table, whether we're doing stuff by ourselves or together, it's that when we talk about this stuff, we're like, hey, this was real for me. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
not like we're not doing it for sympathy. We're not doing it for whatever. We're just like, hey, just to let you know, it's in our chart. So when you're going through stuff like this, it's in your chart too, right?
Exactly, because if we take it out to the public domain, you know, it also, remember, it depends what part of the chart it's in. So with me, it's the 8th house, which is transformation. So
Yeah.
you could say, I'm taking the positive side of the 8th house. It's also
Yeah.
sex, death, birth, all sorts of other things, joint finances, etc., etc. But
Yeah.
I think that the 8th house is also, it's because it's a Scorpio house, and for me it's
Oh gosh.
Pisces.
Yeah.
Then it's like it is about transformation, because this is hopefully going to transform me. So anyone who is watching, if anyone ever does watch this, it would be
They
great
will
to
be.
see you here. We'd be so
They will
happy
have.
to see you here.
They will have this on Rotodial. They'll be listening to it on a regular.
And what I wanted to say, just for everyone out there, don't get worried by Saturn conjunct one of your major planets. If Saturn is going to be conjunct your moon or sun in Pisces, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be what Brandon's gone through or what I'm going through, because it
Yeah.
could be in a different, you know, Brandon and I are both Leo ascendants. And so it pushes it round to the 7th, 8th house.
Yeah.
So therefore, it very individually depends. It could be in your 4th house of home and family. It could be in your 10th house of career.
Yeah, I'm totally checking out your chart again. You know, another interesting thing, you know, the reason why I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get better, and I think you feel this too. You've had this really good influx with your career because Uranus and Jupiter are doing the dance there. For me, I'm going from the 9th house into the 10th house. You're in the 10th house, and you're going to go into the 11th house a little bit later than I start my transition, but that should tell you the wide range of Leo that we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, I mean, for me, this is kind of, you know, I remember I sat with an astrologer about 15 years ago, and he goes, you know, 51, 52 is what you really should be building up to. And I'm like 32, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, so what do I do in the meantime? He's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
kill some time. I don't know what to tell you. He goes, just, you know, get good at stuff. And I'm like, all right. Like, and
Mm.
it was a weird thing. But what he was talking about was this conjuncture in this, and he talked about shedding things and moving things and having some health stuff. Like, I mean, he was insanely accurate, and he's a doctor and a reverend, and he tours the world, and I just happened to have met him. And I remember though him saying, when Uranus moves into your 10th house, like, hang on, you're going to do something nobody sees coming. You're going to do something you can't even think of yet. And I'm kind of sort of there. Like I'm like, oh,
I'm
okay.
kind of sort of ahead of you, because this is what you can expect in a sense, because
Right.
I worked with Uranus in that way. When it hit my midheaven, I launched my YouTube channel. I know you
Oh,
already have a YouTube channel, but your YouTube channel has the opportunity to really take off when Uranus hits your midheaven. Let's explain that for people that don't know what we're talking about.
no, take a class. Watch Penny's videos for crying out loud. Watch Brandon's videos for crying out loud. Well,
Astrology
basically,
Penny.
so Uranus is kind of the great rebellion. Like, it is the part where you take off the reins on your communication. You're like, no, I'm going to say something. There is right now this week there is a square to both Venus and to Mars, where when Uranus squares Venus, your love life just takes a jolt. Like, it just, you know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Expect unexpected stuff. Expect people to act or react in something. Hello,
Well, it's
dear.
good for us, honey, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about anymore. Um,
Oh, honey, come on. Don't be shy.
and I'm never shy. But then the square to Mars is almost like a rebellion against authority. It's you kind of saying, like, here you go. So if you're in a bad relationship, the wheels are coming off. If you're in a good relationship, you're like, you know this is okay, right? Like it's there's going to be some conversations on the other side of this in any of your relationships, and it's kind of an important thing. But when Jupiter and Uranus gets together, it's a supercharge, man. It is a super duper charge. So I'm getting this knowledge base. I don't know if this is another lesson, which would kind of make sense with my feet, but maybe it's a life lesson. Maybe it's me finally learning the things that I'm supposed to. And I really feel like I've done that in a lot of ways, because I don't, if somebody met me 5 years ago and then they see me again and they judge me from 5 years ago, they start off wrong. And I think that's what growth really is in this work. And it's somebody approached me and was like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" It doesn't matter what they asked me, but the phrase basically was, "Can you do this for me?" And I said, "Okay, here's the parameters." And they're like, "Boy, you've really changed." And that's when I knew to run. And I'm like, "Well, good. Well, good."
And you know what I'm doing with Saturn as well is what are you doing?
I didn't get my coffee.
Okay. What I'm doing with Saturn is putting more boundaries into my life. So I'm really being much more careful about, say, the calendar booking system I've got on the website. So I'm not overloading myself with clients, because I want my clients, which are you people that are tuning in now or later, to get the best of me. And if we have a tired penny, we don't have a good astrologer.
I noticed that too about myself. You realize that since you've known me, I have traveled to 21 cities and done I did 40 shows last year. 40 in a matter of it's more like 16 months, but it was a lot. And it was good. It was sustainable. I got to meet a lot of cool people. So what was in it for me was that. But on the other side of it, I'm like, that burnout thing was a real freaking thing. It was a real thing, because people want more. People want this thing and that thing and whatever. And I can't sustain when somebody gets upset with me because I didn't fulfill something anymore. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I failed. See you later. And I no longer try and people please. I no longer try and make that be the top. I mean, if I genuinely forgot something or missed something, I can apologize. I'm not above that. That's not what's going on. But I think in that growth as a person, and to be able to kind of conceptualize it and say, okay, this is where I think this should go. I mean, you had to sit down and say, okay, what works for me, what doesn't. I mean, I joked around. I go, astrology and life coaching. And she said, don't more coach. No more coach. I'm just doing astrology. Because, coaching needs a program. Coaching needs a group.
It was too much. It was too much. And I also cut right back on my content so that my content is more concise. It's more selective, because what I found I was doing was just getting caught onto that treadmill of churning out horoscope type astrology. I'm not a horoscope astrologer. I'm a, I don't know what I am, but I'm not a horoscope astrologer. So, I do full moon, new moon. I do important astrological events, the highlights. I'm doing this series on the outer planets. So we've had Pluto, Uranus, Saturn goes up this month.
Well, hold on a second. I totally got to plug you on this one. That series, if you want to know what's what, go watch the Outer Planet one. I mean, it's well written, it's well put together. For what you do in your studio, whatever limitations you might have, you still exceed it with the content. And that's the part that I think that a lot of people start to, really kind of recognize, that when you're good stuff, people come back. Remember that conversation? Remember that conversation? We were talking about, WB, and you're just like, I feel like we're all over the place. And I'm like, well, if it's good content, they'll come back. And you just went, I can't even argue with you.
No. But I want to just say something about Whiskey and Bagels, because I think that that we needed to stop at the time we stopped.
Yeah, we did.
I think we were in danger of getting going overboard or getting too, it was going to get tired. You know, we were both trying to do too much. We were both on a kind of burning out kind of cycle. There was a lot of things going on in your life, a lot of things with my health going on for me. I just couldn't sustain the amount of content, including whiskey and bagels, that was going on. So to let everybody know why we stopped, it wasn't that we don't care or like each other or didn't enjoy what we were doing. We just needed to stop.
And you know what? I compared it to people when, you know, Seinfeld, who had like, you know, $200 million on the table, and Jerry's like, no, I'm not going to do it, you know, because he's just like, we've done everything we wanted to do. And that, I think, is a really important conversation because we had accomplished those things. Now we miss each other, which is, you know, and then you cleared up some space in yours, and I'm kind of launching this. So you have a home for when you want to jump on a podcast. You have a situation to it. And that was something that we had talked about. You were like, oh, you can still do whiskey and bagels. And I'm like, fucking what? Like, I'm sorry. I'll just get on and eat a bagel, which, by the way, I couldn't anymore. Where you lost weight, I lost almost 4.8, no, not 4.8, 4.2 on my A1C. Like, that was a problem. Like, I was getting out of control with the infection and stuff.
Are you talking about your diabetes?
Yeah, the blood sugar, like, I
Right.
got it all under control. And it was more about that rest thing. I wasn't resting. Like, my body couldn't recover.
Yeah.
So, you know, that whole thing. But anyways, so this will be a space for you. And as we kind of talked about it, we'll see how it goes, go with the flow.
Yeah.
But for you to come back every once in a while, I'm totally game with it, because the structure of this is to meet part of the reason why I went on the road. And by the way, whether you realize it or not, it was the perfect segue for me to explain, you know, even why you're on the show here today, because yeah, you're interesting. I connected with all of these great people along the way, like amazing people. And I've just been in a whirlwind for 2 years and on the road and that sort of thing. And I physically, spirit's just like, no, you're not. But what I can do is connect with you in this way. I met a lot of people in Florida. I met people in Memphis. I met people out of Denver, out of LA. I met people all over the place. And some of them are musicians and comedians and spiritual workers and whatever. And those are the conversations I want to have. We haven't quite gotten the platform right, and it's a little chunky, but we'll get there. Listen, one of these days I'm going to come in and everything's going to work as soon as I turn it on. I'm not going to come on and be like, well, no, and by the way, anybody that ever, like, I want to be punctual. Like I said to you, I go, we're a few minutes early, but I'd rather be early, because I literally have this pitch for an 11:11 sponsor to be our 11:11 break. And I'm like, well, we can't do that if we're always changing the time and the date and everything else. I'm like, so we're becoming concrete. And by the way, when a Pisces says no, we got to be concrete, that's when you know the law has been laid down. So, you know. So
and can I say one more thing before we start looking at charts? Is that you were talking about all the wonderful people you meet. I have to say, the clients I meet, especially my American clients, and I hope some of you will be watching this and listen to this. Listen, honey, they are what?
I know.
My clients are just the most amazing people. I'm meeting such interesting, bloody amazing people.
And it's funny. We did the comparison, and I've met some European people for sure, but it's a different feel here in America. Like, I think there's an awakening. I think there's something going on in the United States, and it's not a knock. You know, we love you up in Ireland, we love you in France, we love you in England. Gozo, sure. But it's funny. Like, it was kind of like they just want to kick the tires and figure out what's wrong with you. And I found that to be, you see it here in the US too, but it was prevalent when I would see people internationally. And what I found kind of interesting was, and I'm kind of putting it together, I think that the US is going through this awakening thing, which really kind of leads us into some of the charts we want to talk about.
Yes.
And it's the, you know, the politics of it. And by the way, if you tuned into this and we're like, let's see if they talk politics, Yeah, just grab a cold one, because here it comes. We're my take on this as an American is that we have completely lost our way. We don't have structure anymore. We have lost. It's Saturn and Pisces. It's ripping apart every single structured thing.
And remember, it's Pluto having left Capricorn until September, because Pluto in Capricorn and the Pluto return for the United States is trying to change the whole system. It's breaking down the old ways of doing things. It's now moved into Aquarius until September. When it leaves and goes back into Capricorn till November the 20th.
Yeah, it's only like 7-8 weeks.
It's to tidy up. It's to go back in there and pull the rug out from anything that is still standing, that is corrupt, diseased, that is broken, that is just not where we are. The old boys' school network way of running governments, corporations, businesses cannot work anymore. The people are not stupid.
It's almost like I any of the political shows that I watch, and I really do I am left of center generally, but I was a lifelong Republican. Like, I always thought that, like, you should have financial boundaries. Like, hey, let's not waste money. Like, that was kind of my political view. Like, when it comes to people getting married, like, I perform gay weddings. Like, I don't. If I was on the right, it was fiscally on the right, socially liberal for sure, because it's like that doesn't really bend at the moral fabric. What bends at the moral fabric is telling people what to do against their will, and that's what we're really experiencing. The Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, for that matter, are really generally just lame duck forever. They're busy trying to indict cabinet members, which is just a waste of time. They're given a border bill that they shoot down because they don't want it to look good for the other side. I mean, this is skullduggery. This isn't politics anymore. It's skullduggery. Meanwhile, the actual problem, this is the irony, and then we can get into some of the charts. The irony is that you have somebody standing trial that is literally getting expedited in his court cases, and he's fighting it, and he's stalling it, and he's stalling it, and he's stalling it. He wants to delay. Meanwhile, every single immigrant wants their hearing, and they keep getting delayed because of our process. It is insane. Oh, by the way, if you were to let in 20% of the immigrants, it would cover in taxes Donald Trump's penalties. Just thought I'd kind of put that out there.
Wow.
And by the way, you can legally work in the United States, and you can pay taxes. It's a matter of citizenship, and they're villainizing it. I mean, 99.9% of all people that cross the border are not violent criminals, and now they're trying to attach that to Biden. It is Antichrist level. It is setting us up for the negative. It is setting us up for the quandary, and it's really going to come down to the people that count the votes. Are they morally? Do they have a moral compass when it comes to time for the electors? Which, by the way, why do we have an electoral college now? How 1820 is that? We're not one person, one vote. That's a problem, guys. We get collected and pooled, and then they gerrymander, and then they whatever. There's a podcast that I listen to that actually talks about there are currently 35 court cases in various jurisdictions to move and otherwise block gerrymandering laws. And what gerrymandering is to rig a section or a precinct to be pro-Republican and whatever, because they know if they just get enough of those, then they win the state. It's awful. We're not a free country. We are a manipulated country. So that's what we're facing. What is the take in Europe about looking at this? Like, what's the fear? And I go to the fear because that's really what we're talking about.
What can I say? I mean, it's like, well, actually, the problem is, I think the general feeling is we don't have a strong America, and the West needs a strong America. Putin is playing us for the fools. Putin is pushing his way into Europe bit by bit. Ukraine has kind of become yesterday's news. We're now all focused on Israel and Hamas and all of that. And that is just abhorrent. It is the most awful and disgusting kind of genocide, in my opinion, that is taking on. It's the destruction of a nation, and tit for tat just doesn't do it for me. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but what I think is that we're forgetting the main players here is Iran, and you've got to look at the whole Saudi area, the whole Arab Peninsula, because who and why are they funding the various factions? And then you've got to look across to China and, of course, North Korea.
So listen, Saudis were very much in our pocket for a long time until we invaded Iraq. George Bush in that proxy war of like, hey, this goes back to 9/11. And again, we never really got a full-on answer for 9/11 because it wouldn't have fit the narrative, right? Then we invade, Iraq with whatever. And listen, Saddam Hussein was not a saint, right? Neither is Zelensky, neither, and definitely not Putin. But do they deserve atrocity? I don't know. I'm not going to answer that moral compass, but what I will say is the outcome was then the Saudis got really mad at us. And then during the Obama administration, we went ahead and allowed and fought our own proxy war in Yemen, also genocide. We have funded 4 genocides since 9/11, guys. 4. Not wars, genocides. Let's start calling it what it is, because you've got a component here that, we're rolling the dice. And it's funny, I watch Neil deGrasse Tyson a lot. He's a known astrophysicist. He's very well spoken. And he's like, we need to kind of update ourselves on nuclear war. And, the person that was interviewing was like, yeah, it's bad. And he's like, it's actually not as bad as what you think now, because depending upon what type of bomb they use, it's local destruction for sure. But the radiation doesn't carry anymore, because what it does is it implodes into itself. Now, you don't want to be anywhere near a shock rays. Like, it decimates, it turns it into blender fodder. But what it doesn't do is spread radiation the way that it used to. It's actually a very localized bomb now. So nuclear fallout, nuclear winter isn't the conversation anymore. It truly 100% is about, it's still going to cause ridiculous damage to certain people, and why do we target them? Go ahead.
Yeah, the last time Saturn was in Pisces, we had the Oslo Accord, which was when Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization signed a peace agreement. The World Trade Center had a bombing in the basement, in the garage. A truck bomb exploded.
The tester.
Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa, marking the end of apartheid. The Dayton Agreement was signed, ending the Bosnian War, establishing the framework for peace.
Also genocide.
And Herzegovina. And finally, just to add to this, we had Dolly the sheep, the first cloned sheep, and the Atlanta bombings, the Atlanta Olympics bombings.
Oh my gosh. All of these were testers. They were all testers. The World Trade Center, I knew somebody that had that was down there that day. She wasn't in the tower, but she was visiting New York City, and she's like, it was mayhem. She goes, if something was to really happen, like a really big bomb was to go off, like people were just going to cannibalize themselves. And it got me thinking. I was like, oh, I mean, nobody was talking about planes at that point, but Yeah, I mean, Bosnia was 100% a genocide.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. And then you also have there was something else that went on there. I mean, the cloning part of it.
Rwanda, the Tutsi tribe, there was about 800,000 people that were massacred.
Why is genocide a human response? Like Penny, this is where I'm at now. Like, I'll talk to your dead grandmother for you. I'm cool. But when I'm sitting around, I've mastered that. Like, I can walk into a room and, okay, everybody, let's read. It's a good time. It's a fun time. It's my relief now. It's kind of like, you know how some guys go out in the car, out in the garage and work on the car or jam or whatever, which, by the way, I'm getting back into too. But there's something to be said for the bigger picture changing. I'm concerned with, why do we not pay attention to these patterns? We have a very specific pattern. Why do we withhold information? And by the way, the greatest energy is knowledge. It is not human resources and that sort of thing. Another dipshit thing I heard the other day too was, we want to go and explore asteroids to bring back their value here and mine asteroids.
And did you see Russia and China want to put a nuclear power station on the moon?
Some like it hot. Some like it hot.
So then they can control the planet by...
I'm going to go full... can I go full conspiracy on this?
Well, I'm just saying that
there already is one.
It's been out in the news.
Have you heard the thing about the moon hum?
No.
Yeah, there's a moon hum. Yeah, and they think it's because of the machinery that is keeping the gravitational pull there. And they did it. Whoever they are. Right? Enos and Keel put it there so that then they could control the tides. You know, it makes sense. I mean, with that, then you have ebb and flow, and then you can have, you know, crabs washed up on the sea so the birds can flourish, and then the birds can go, you know, move the flowers around, and then the flowers can bloom and blossom, and the snakes can be in the grass, and blah, 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 all that other stuff. So, so thank you very much for 7 days. It worked pretty well, but the moon may or may not be there. By the way, do you know that the moon is only mentioned in the Bible twice?
No.
Mm-hmm. It was when Jesus went out into it was before Gethsemane, where he went into that and he prayed by the moonlight.
Yeah.
And the only other time was when Moses went out into the moonlight with the tablets. It's the only two times that the moon actually represents. Well, what does that mean? Are those things in darkness? Are those things in, you know, part of all of that? Like, these are the rabbit holes that my head is in, and these are the things that I think are conversation pieces. These are the things that I think we've got to flesh out. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist anymore, but I want some damn answers. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, when we have like evidence-based things, like, hey, we have all of these, we're hung up on nonsense. Like, it would require, for Donald Trump to be held accountable, it would require him to grow and to have had grown a moral compass somewhere. Like, he doesn't have a moral bone in his body, and it's deceptively bad. Hey, we caught you with these things that we asked for 100 times, and oh, by the way, these are top secret things that if they fell into the wrong hands, it would be detrimental to everybody. And then he's like, they're not here, you can't see them, it was search and seizure, I have rights. I'm sorry, what? We're bastardizing truths on a regular basis. And it's not just politics, guys. We also got to look at our own stuff, because we do it all the time. Sorry, put it out there. No, you want to take a look at Trump?
Start looking at charts.
Yeah, let's take a look at Trump here.
Because you want to look at Trump or at Biden?
Well, let's take a look at Biden first, and look at the.
Yeah,
it's almost natural. Do you see this? Do you see this?
Yeah.
It's almost natural. Come back anytime. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go to Biden first, because
let's do Biden first, because this full moon in Libra, which is a lunar eclipse on the 25th, so not that long away. Just to bring in a little bit of the sort of the lead up to that, we have a new moon in Pisces on Sunday, the 10th.
Isn't it on April Isn't it on April 8th?
No, you're thinking of the total solar eclipse in Aries.
Which, by the way, I'm sorry. And by the way,
yeah,
I'll be coming to you live from that one.
I'm bringing us a little bit closer to home with what's happening in the next months, basically.
We'll have to have you on, like, with less discs on. See what I did there?
I might be linked up to machines.
That's okay. With us now is Penny. She's moving her eyelids. It's like, with us as always. As long as you guys tune in, I wish you well, love. So, so here on the 25th, which, by the way, is also a significant date to Trump because that's also one of his trial dates. But what do you see here in Biden land?
The full moon is conjunct Biden's Neptune in his 10th house. So it's Libra. So harmony, balance, all of that, trying to see both sides. However, Libra is an interesting sign, isn't it? Because it's cardinal. So sometimes we think Libra is a bit of a pushover, but it's not. It's like, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no, you don't. And here we have this full moon conjunct his Neptune. I think he will be, I hate to say it, but I just think he's just not going to be sure about anything and about what direction to go in. I think maybe things will have happened, or they already have done in the last 24 hours. But I think that he just, I feel sad for him because I just don't think he has the strength to see this through.
Well, first of all, having Uranus sitting in his 6th house is a doubly, that ain't good, people. That's not a great placement. But I will tell you that I think I think what he's going to do is do the comfortable, safe thing because the South Node is there and it's not going to upset the apple cart, but it's going to be like, it's almost like more promises, being the 10th house, having Neptune in there and having it be Libra makes him a great negotiator, right? But give me 1984 Joe Biden when he was rolling up his sleeves going, let's get this transportation bill squared away. And listen, I think that in any of those wins that he had, there's some stuff in there. But having the sun transit through his 4th house right now, I actually think they're going to come up with more stuff with Hunter. They may find stuff with Jill, who I don't think they've done anything wrong, but you're dealing with people that literally accused the prosecutor of having an affair just to embarrass them. They did literally nothing wrong. And Fani Willis, by the way, those of you that didn't watch the news because this got buried, the key witness that brought the entire case was on the stand. And they said, how do you know that Fani and so were together before this date? And he goes, I don't know. I was speculating. Like literally. And the judge just looked at him and went, okay, thank you. Yeah. I mean, he knew what just happened. They have no credible evidence to it. It's just speculation. Yeah. So you take a chart like this that he should be so opportunistic, but then again, he keeps saying it and he's so Teflon about it that you're like, hey, why did your lawyers lie on this? Well, she's terrible and whatever. You'd never answer the question. You never. The first thing with narcissism is they run from an answer. They always run from an answer, right? But don't think he's not showing us stuff. I mean, do you ever see it? Do you think Joe Biden has a level of narcissism?
Well, I think anyone that, goes into politics has to have a strong ego and has to firstly be passionate about what they're doing, but also they have to have an element of narcissism to be able to do the performance because, any politician basically has to be a good public speaker. That is about performing. And if you're not a good public speaker, it's like the reason why you and I do what we do, whether it's separate or together, is because we are good public speakers. We can talk on the hoof. We can come up with things. We can dig ourselves out of a rabbit hole. And the element of narcissism that both of us have hopefully gets used in a constructive and positive way. I've worked for years to get my narcissism into some kind of sense where I'm in charge of it, and it does not come out and trip me up, which is what can happen. Now, when we look at politicians like both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I don't know about Joe Biden because I never really saw much of him when he was a younger man. So I don't know how he came across, but, you know, and clearly he was very happy to be where he is now. He's waited a long time to get to this point in his life. Sadly, I just feel his health really is standing in the way of him being able to come across in any way authentically, not because he's not being authentic, just because he's not very good anymore at doing what he probably was good at once. And with Donald Trump, he still has his ability to be a good public speaker, even with his nuances and edge that a lot of people find difficult to digest. And, you know, certainly in my view, as a woman, I find his, for me, misogynistic approach to the feminine in general just distasteful. Whether that'll soften, but what I'm seeing with Trump, interestingly, is I think he's tired. And, you know, I don't think he has the same level of energy. And of course he doesn't.
Well,
I mean, you know, these guys, I would not have the energy to do what they're doing. I have the energy to just about do what I'm doing, which is nothing. You know.
And by the way, talk to 40-year-old Brandon as opposed to 51-year-old Brandon, and it's a totally different energy level. But I also gain knowledge in that.
Yeah, but talk to 50-year-old Penny and talk to 68, nearly 69-year-old Penny, because in May I will be 69. Now, an interesting number. I'm sure you'll say.
That's the golden year. That's the golden year, and everybody was waiting for me to say something.
I said it first.
I know you did. I know you did.
But you know, it is a big deal, and I do notice changes in my body, and I notice that I also just everything slows down, and it's difficult to explain how it does, but it just does. I mean, in one sense, yes, okay, my body's going through a change because it's physically challenged at the moment, and after surgery hopefully I will gain better mobility. But if I didn't have the surgery, I was going to be in a wheelchair in a year's time, and I don't want that, which is why I opted for the surgery.
You should be more in like a yoga swing.
For what, Brandon?
I don't know, to do the new and improved whiskey and bagels. Anyways, we're gonna need a lot of whiskey for that, but just to get you up there. Come on, let's go, girl.
Right. Okay.
Brandon, what are you doing?
I think let's move on. Actually, I think
let me talk about Trump here for a second, because with his chart, a couple of things. You've got Pluto that has moved into his 6th house. Now, this is going to dance back and forth for a little bit. It's going to go back into the 5th house. Don't be surprised if he gets really shystery here. That Pluto might be the reason why he wins. And by the way, everybody's like, oh my God, don't say that. Hold on. Because as I have really kind of centered, he and I actually, we're only a few degrees off on our Leo rising. We're way different though, because he's at 29 degrees. His Uranus moves into the 10th house, which is he's gonna be 100% unpredictable. 100%. You think he's unpredictable now? He is going to be beyond unpredictable. And I think it's a combination of people not paying attention. I think it's a combination of people not caring. I think it's people basically saying, isn't that what I signed up for? I signed up to have the swamp drained and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. But the reality is his momentum is really just in his sheer vitality. And his vitality is in some serious trouble, because the
Yeah.
sun is moving through that 8th house. He also has
Mm.
Neptune making a transition to the, by the way, do not go sailing with Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
He's got Neptune sitting in the 8th house. You do not want to fool around with that. You're going
Yeah.
to have, Venus moving through as well. You're going to find out more of his payoffs. You're going to find out more of his stuff. I actually think Melania is going to, if he's elected or not elected, by the end of the year, she files for divorce and she's out of there. I think it is part of the playbook. I think it is
Yeah.
part of her when she sees how financially ruined he is, plus or minus. She's going to basically say, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that one, because I think it's very interesting. This full moon lunar eclipse falls in his 2nd house of finance, and of course it brings in the sun's energy in Aries, in money owed, joint finances, anything of that kind of nature. And I just think because Virgo is on the cusp of the 2nd house, he is worried underneath, really, really big time worried, because he is going to get so much money or bills slammed on him, and he's not going to quite know how he's going to dig himself out. And just becoming president, because I think he will get elected, I have no doubt of that. But I just think that he's going to be one of the poorest presidents that we've ever had.
He's going to be the most compromised president ever. I mean,
he's going to be bankrupt,
which makes him compromised. Like, that is the struggle with all of this, Penny. At the end of the day, what people are really worried about isn't his cognitive decline. It is the fact that, say what you will about Joe Biden, he did it right for whatever that lexicon was, right? He invested in himself when he wasn't in office. Did he do consulting? Did he make money? Fine, whatever. That's the grift, right? This dude grifted in office. This dude was selling secrets at Mar-a-Lago on his quote unquote vacation. And, it's funny. I remember Obama, golfed X amount of days a year. Donald Trump golfs 360 days a year. There's about 5 or 6 days he can't. His biggest disruption about these court cases is that he can't golf. Make no mistake, that is the hindrance here for him. That is the unfortunate truth for him. And I think when we get there, when he gets there, you need to have, I have a small minor traffic infraction from a little while ago that I somehow kind of forgotten about. Yeah, I'm kind of, I actually received a letter that said the word scofflaw. And I'm like, what? And what do? I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to call you guys. What do I need to do? Happy to do. I just forgot about it. Right, guys? When you're say, I left it in my other cape. That's what I told them. Anyways, I laughed. They didn't. But that is the reaction of most citizens, to be like, hey, listen, it's a pain in the ass. And I'm going to be held accountable for this. I'm truly sorry. Let me just take care of it. Oh, it's an extra $50 because I forgot. Okay. You take your lumps, right? And you move on with it. The challenge that I think a lot of people don't recognize is that he never, ever, ever, ever wants to be held accountable, because he's never been held accountable. There is nobody on the face of the earth that has ever done that. By the way, one of the signs of the Antichrist is that they will not have a check and balance. He is working towards removing checks and balances. I will also tell you, and this isn't, I got to be really cautious with how to say this. There is an undercurrent of people that will never allow him to get into office, because he has disrespected veterans in a way that, here he is placating racism. He's placating, voter rights, suppressing voter rights. He's basically kind of being like, why they like my shoes? Because the blacks. And you're just like, who says that and still runs? He's willing to do all of that. But the one group that he is eternally upset is, in no uncertain terms, is the veterans. He is never going to get through these 4 years. He is just not. The backbone of who our country is and how it was built is looking at that shit and going, no, thank you. And I know we said we weren't going to swear, but I think we're far enough along. They're looking at this and they're going, oh no, this isn't a Democrat thing. This isn't a Republican thing. This is you soiled everyone that died at Quezon Hill. You soiled everybody that went down in Bosnia. You absolutely walked over my person who blew up with an IED in Iraq. You know, I sat with a woman about 3 years ago, and her boyfriend, I mean, her boyfriend was in Iraq. They were engaged. Everything was great. You know, she would hear from him every 2 to 3 weeks. She'd get letters from him weekly, whatever. And he said, I don't know what we're doing here. He died. His entire group hit an IED, and this is in a reading. And so when I have an opportunity or I have an opinion of politics, it's because I'm talking to people that died without understanding why,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And her entire life was, and it took her years to kind of pick herself up, and she's doing great. But it took her a long time. Like, she was like, he's going to come home, 2.3 kids, white picket fence. He's going to be employable. We're going to rock it. We're going to start a family. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And sure enough, she literally gets a phone call from his mother, and she's like, are you sitting down? And she knew. This is why we pay attention to this stuff. Like, astrology doesn't say, go send your sons over to defend yourself. But astrology doesn't say we're right wing or left wing. Astrology doesn't say the Chiefs are going to win, right? What they say is the opportunity is there. Who's going to take advantage of it?
And what you and I do, I think, because I think we're very similar in the way that we do astrology, is we work intuitively with it. So we are not necessarily kind of traditional kind of politically correct astrologers in many ways.
Yeah.
But we work intuitively with the map that is presented to us of the cosmos. I mean, I just feel with Donald, he has got to watch his blood pressure, and I don't. I just feel, and I think it was from looking at it was either it could have been the full moon in April. The new moon in April, the new moon total solar eclipse in Aries.
Yeah.
And I felt, I just felt heart attack or stroke. I just think he has to be careful. You know, I'm not wishing anything bad on anyone. It's
You're
just
not wishing an assassination attempt. I know that.
No.
What?
It's just I pick these things up.
But I will tell you, though, the conditions are here. And I think the thing that you brought us right to a point, and I want to go back to it.
Yeah.
We're studying these things so we understand it, right? The general public is traditionally ignorant on a epic level. Well, you don't know this, you don't know that. Now they're kind of like, they're getting a little too smart. Flood the zone, give them misinformation, give them shit that doesn't count, give them things that don't make sense, give them ups and downs and downs and ups. Guess what? The astrology speaks to that. And then on the other side of that, whenever you and I talk about astrology, we always take time to educate. Why? Because astrology is chaos. It really is. It is a predictable chaos, but it is chaos nonetheless, because this planet doesn't like this one and blah, blah, blah. It is the classic soap opera that you have to keep track of when you start saying, oh, Uranus is squared to, Venus. Guess what? She's going to blame you and it's your fault, because that's part of that statement. Oh my gosh, that's chaos. Well, that's okay. She's going to march into work 3 days later when Uranus is square to Mars and tell her boss to go pound salt. Like, those are all of the things that are possibilities in those moments. And by keeping us ignorant, by staying ignorant, do your deep dive in your studies. Go back to all of the classes you took and pull out the things that you were supposed to know. Guys, it's freaking go time. It is. And I'm going to encourage, the vote counters. I'm going to encourage, anybody that's associated with the Electoral College to go back to what makes you great, what makes this country great. They're the ones that need the education. They're the ones that need to be reminded in these things, because that's what it's going to come down to. Judges aren't going to save us. Congress isn't going to save us. The president isn't going to save us. We have to save ourselves. That's what a democracy is. So guess what, everybody? There's a Tuesday coming and we better be ready.
Yeah. And in terms of Europe, just how Europe views America again is it's kind of like a big disappointment.
Of course.
And
Why wouldn't it be?
I think Russia is laughing. I think they're laughing all the way to, whatever. I mean, that murder, well, yeah, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but
Well, no, bring up Navalny. I don't mind if you bring up Navalny, because I'm going to tell you
because that was
something.
murder. That was murder.
It's always been murder. It has
Yeah.
always been murder. Always been murder. It is genocide. And whether you want to talk about a protective class of people or a protective ideology, the next genocide is in ideology, and it is where knowledge is.
Yeah. And, I just think that what's happening in America is what's happening is the world has taken its eye off where the ball is, because the ball is in Iran and China. And that's where we should be looking to.
We can't get there.
When has Biden or Trump mentioned Iran or China?
Because we're too busy placating the Saudis right now, and we're too busy trying to make up for other past mistakes and things. And we're literally, can somebody please just in 30 seconds explain to me what a border bill has to do with Ukraine? Nothing. 100% politics. People.
What is the US? Sorry, what is the foreign policy for the US?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Honestly? We used to know it. We used to know it. Part of the reason why the UN, and by the way, there has only been one country in the last 25 years that has called on the UN for its protection. Do you know what that country is? The United States of America. We are absolute hypocrites. We do pay 80% of the freight, right? But we helped in Bosnia. And by the way, the reason why we don't go full in other things is because we don't stand on our principles. We literally sit there and say, how do we make more money with this? Well, a 2-year war, we're able to spend this much on it, is much better than if we actually take a stand, commit soldiers to it, and get it done in 3 months. We don't do that. If we're the best in the world, these are pimples on the ass. But instead, what we've allowed is these transgressions in these anger pockets to build up. Whether it is Al Qaeda, whether Al Qaeda was ever really more than 2,500 people, is still up there. It's still in question. Yeah. So our foreign policy is, I don't know. We really don't have a foreign policy. Our foreign policy is to show up or give you money and influence.
I'm not saying the rest of the world has got it right, but what I'm saying is probably both Europe and America really have taken their eye well and truly off the ball, because the Far East and Russia must be laughing their heads off. We are just open to everybody walking in. I mean, I can't even go to where the UK is in its political state, because it's in just as much a mess as America in a different way.
Well, and then doesn't that have the encouragement of energy of chaos? Because if the United States is in chaos and the UN is in chaos, then Malta can go like, there's bigger problems out there. We can do what we want.
Well, I'm very glad I live in Gozo, to be quite honest, because it's a nice, safe place. We have very low crime rates. I mean, like 0.5 or something. And we have a good way of life. And if anyone wants to press the button and blow off a bomb in Europe, we're pretty well protected here, and we can grow our own food and catch our own fish. But
I think it's interesting, and somebody just brought up a really good point I do want to tackle. So should you not get involved? If it doesn't concern you, should you get involved?
If it doesn't concern you, should you get involved?
If you're going to be okay either way, why should you have stake in the game? This is a really important question.
Yeah, but are you talking about me and Gozo or in Europe in general?
Malta. Let's just talk about Malta and Gozo. Like, why would they take up arms for a side if they're
Well, there's
side?
no point. There's no point for them to do it. There's no point unless they were personally threatened. I
So
do
until it
think
lands in their backyard.
yeah, but I do think there is still actually a loyalty to the United Kingdom or Great Britain. Let's put it as Great Britain, because Malta is still part of what's known as the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have reciprocal agreements between Malta and the UK, which is why I can live here because of Brexit. I can live here quite easily. Whereas if I'd chosen to live in Spain or France or
Whole other
Italy,
show.
would be
That's
difficult.
a whole
Would be
other show.
difficult.
Well,
But
people tend to ask, and it is in the chat, kind of like the who died and made us God. And I get that a lot, and a very kind of like, and by the way, follow the trail on this. I understand the idea of basically saying like, well, why does everybody have to be a congressional, legislative, judicial form of government? Never in the history of ever has the United States gone in and given anyone our government. Also, part of that is that it's always been about stability. It's always been about, and you could say, oh, it's about the manipulation. We like this. It's about ideology, right? And who died and left us whatever. Because if you lose one state and another state and another state and another state who see us as the enemy, they have a responsibility to stand up and say, excuse me, we need to push this back. Because 9/11, although I don't, I'm not going to get banned today. I don't think that we really recognize how much people go down that path, but I refuse to hate a country that has provided for so much. If we do it the right way, in a judicious way, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about money grab with oil fields. I'm talking about us doing the right things as humans, that we left things better than how we found them. That is our responsibility, not to become their rulers. This isn't imperialism, right? We're
yes,
not
I
building an
agree.
empire. Hawaii has a pretty good gripe. Puerto Rico, yeah. But after that, we kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, we really can't do that anymore. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
if we want to go here, why is, the UK still in Ireland? I'm sorry, Northern Ireland's still come on.
Because a lot of the Northern Irish want to be part of Britain.
Okay,
So
fine.
that's why.
Fine. And it's a battle of ideology. But it started out with you there, that land right there, we'd like to take it. We're going to take over the entire island eventually.
But let's just think about, and we really should finish, Brandon, but
oh my gosh, you got things to do, people to be. You got somebody to work on your disc later.
Just think about the fact that the war in the Middle East in Israel is 2,000 years old.
Who are we, right? So what's the answer? The problem is that now there's Christians around the world. The challenge is that Islam has spread around the world. The problem is that Judaism has been a fist fight forever. And by the way, I'm not entirely sure Israel is 100% correct in this conflict, but that's what they want you to think. They want you to be like, okay, what's going on here? We're trying to be the oppressor all the time. That's the problem.
This comes back to the original kind of, if we think of American independence and when the Europeans first came to America, thinking they were the original inhabitants of the United States of America, which wasn't called that then, and
it was actually Vikings.
Took the land from the native Americans.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we have in this is so goes the spoil, so goes the war. That is why Trump needs to be held in check. that because he will rewrite history like he was overthrown, like he already has people working on it. And when your top 3 advisors, when one of them is an anti-constitutionalist for the, to run the legal team, and then another one to implement border patrol that is a known white supremacist, and then another one that is basically Captain Chaos behind the scenes that will literally move pieces in place for you to be, somebody mentioned that there's one person in his cabinet that wants to move, tax day, which has been April 15th forever, and I can do a whole thing on taxes, wants to move it to February 1st. And you're like, what does that mean? And then they want to be able to hang on to your money for a full year until the following February 1st, if they owe you money, because they want to collapse things and keep the money for themselves. So then when they give it to you, it'll be in piecemeal. And that is a game. Like, it is the same game that did the stand down of the F-14s on September 11th, 2001. It is the same idea when banks were too big to fail and we placated it and wouldn't let them fall and bailed them out. Where's this money coming from? It's not sustainable. So it's got to collapse.
No.
So when everybody's like worried about this, it's about protecting your own self. And it's not about guns. It's not about protecting it that way. It's about knowing what you believe in. That is any light worker's challenge right now. It's not even about fixing yourself. Yourself is over, guys.
Becoming better people, knowing yourself well, being kind, being authentic.
If you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. Right? It's that simple, right? You know that phrase. You remember that picture I sent you? Where I was like, if you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. You're like, Brandon, that's not even you.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful picture of a lovely cockerel.
Lighthouse. It was a lighthouse. It was a lighthouse. It was a lighthouse. Come on, get it right. All right. Would you be my neighbor? Would you come back again?
I'd come back again. It won't be for a while because I'm about to have back surgery. But have I mentioned that?
You did, and you know what? I'm gonna scrub in. So I'm gonna. I'm gonna go. Get a good night's sleep, and then I'll be there. I mean, it's been a while since I've done back surgery, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, listen, wouldn't that scare the living bejesus out of you if you were like, oh dear, and I pull down my mask and I'm like, hi Penny, how are you? I'm doing your surgery today. You would literally, like, I'd poke my head under your face in the face cradle. I'd be like, hey Penny, what's going on? Hey, listen, I was wondering if I could schedule your first show. Anyways, what do you think about Uranus? Oh gosh, there it is. And then you'd be like, let me out of here. And then,
well, actually, I was thinking of live streaming my surgery, but I don't think it would be allowed.
Really bad idea. Just to let you know, as a consultant, I'm going to let you know that's a super bad idea, like super duper bad idea. But I mean, do what you want to do. I mean, that's Penny for you. But anyways, love that we are connected this way. It's a perfect setting. We're going to keep going with this.
We've enjoyed ourselves, even if nobody else has.
Yeah, what the hell? I mean, it's like, and by the way, this is where like when we do get caught up and we're on video and whatever, we're like, oh, we should say that for a podcast. And we're like, no, it's like our own. If you really want to get in there, like get in the back seat of my car when I'm talking to Penny, because it's like it's pretty funny. Anyways, I digress. All right, guys, we're going to give each other the hard taps to remind to care and love for one another. And we'll be back next time. And I promise to do better. Penny, thanks so much for being a guest and a great friend.
You are so welcome.
All right. Love you, dear. Thanks again, guys. Like and subscribe. Become a member of the site. It's only $2.99. You actually cannot be able to see this entirety later on today. You're going to be able to see clips, but if you sign up for just $2.99 a month, you can be in the audience. So clips forthcoming early next week.
This is my pussy cat.
Jesus. We almost got through it. We almost got through it. How do you? Why do you always? It was a lighthouse. I swear, it was a lighthouse. It's like the angle that was off. The sun.
I don't know. She's turning around again. Come on.
What is she doing? Is she backing up?
No, she's cold. It's very
Oh.
cold in Gozo at the moment.
No, well, that's no good for any cat.
I need you to come and warm me up, Brandon.
I gotta go. Hard taps to everybody, and next time we'll do better. See you guys soon.
Yeah. Ciao.
Thank you, Penny. Bye-bye. They can still hear us, but we're going to end.
Hang on a minute. I'm just